welcome back to episode 2 of Redoing My Master Bedroom, and in today's video we're going to be painting all the walls, and I have found a much better trick versus cutting in with a brush and using this tape gun that we'll talk about more in a bit. Now, as a reminder, this is what we started with, and this is what we are trying to get to by the end of this series. Now, in today's video, the best thing you're going to take away is how to have existing trim that's already completely done, already looks perfect, and how you can tape it off the fastest and get the best possible result.
One continuous piece all the way around.
So I actually jumped a little bit ahead of myself this morning. I was getting some stuff done while my wife was still sleeping, and I needed something to do that was nice and quiet. And the way I'm painting this room is different than anything I've done before. So this time what I decided to do was I pre-did all the trim. So I put all the trim on, I painted all the trim in place, caulked it all, and I went around and taped it. And then I'm going to seal the tape with another coat of the same eggshell trim paint, and then I'll go over top. And that way I don't have to do any cutting in. There's a lot of trim in this room, and I wanted to avoid all the cutting in, so I figured I could try something a little different. Now, my secret weapon for taping today was this thing. So this is a 3M little taping gadget. I picked this up at Home Depot, or maybe Amazon. They sell it at Home Depot. It's like 20 bucks, and essentially all it is just a thing you put your roll of tape on, and it just glides it nice against the wall. Makes it super easy. It was so fast to do this. Like, every time I've done it before, it's taken a while, and I was able to tape out this room so much faster than anything I've done before. So this might be the way I always, at least like this little gadget to put out tape and like a really consistent path is fantastic. So yeah, I'm gonna use this on like everything from now on. It was only 20 bucks. Highly recommend this thing for any of your jobs. So tape is all done. Next thing I'm gonna do is go around and seal all the tape. That way I get a nice crisp line, and then I'll start to go over and I'll trim out the entire room and cut in all my ceilings, cut in all around all the trim with the actual paint. And so I'll pick up when we get to there.
Now, this step is crucial to get really crisp lines if you're going to be taping it off like this. So even if you're using a really high quality tape, it can still bleed through underneath, especially like me, where I didn't let the tape like sit for long. I didn't let it seal or do anything like that. So all you have to do is take the exact same paint you have for the trim and then basically lightly feather it into this tape here, so that way there will be no bleed through from your wall paint to on your trim. And all you have to make sure you do is just push it into that gap, make sure it seals it, but at the same time you want to feather it into the wall, and that way it doesn't show any harsh lines when you paint over top of it here. Now, like, this is by far the fastest I've ever cut an entire room by far.
All right, so that was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. So while that dries, I can actually go around now, so I can go and start cutting the ceiling. I also do all my paint prep in this bathroom because it's linoleum, and cleanup is really easy in here versus carpet. I have to lay down fabric and other stuff. So this is our paint. It's a custom kind of cream color that we made up. So all my stuff is Sherwin-Williams. I just like working with them. They're nice people. That, like a handy pour spout. Reseal it as I go. That way I don't have to put the lid back on. I want it to be enough just to dip my brush.
Now, right about here, I found out pretty quick I was a little bit worried with the coverage of this paint. So I don't know if it's to do with the paint we chose being this cream color, or if it's because it's going over like a purple wall color, but man, the coverage was just not good on this stuff. Like, usually on the first pass I can get it pretty damn close to here, but I just found it was taking forever to get this thing laid out, and a lot longer than I really wanted to. So now I do really like the color at the end, but as you can see if you watch the entire video, this took a lot longer than I thought it was to paint because of this coverage issue. So in the future, when I plan on using this color in more areas of my house, I am definitely going to go around with primer first, cut in the ceiling with primer, do a base coat of primer on all the walls before I do any of this. Now, again, when I cut out, I also do all my outlets, I do all my switches, I do everything here because I'm not great with a roller, so I'm making sure I get far away. Now, the only upside with this was that the fact it took me so long to cut in meant that where I sealed all the tape had already dried, and I could go around and cut in all the trim as well. But again, I'm putting it on the wall here for the first time with the roller, and you can see, like, normally I want way better coverage on this first coat, and most Sherwin-Williams paints, especially the Opulence line I use, has better coverage. So it has to be the fact that I'm going from this cream to this purple, but man, it looked not great at this point, and the second coat didn't make it much better. Now, while I'm painting here, I might as well take the time to give you guys a little bit of background on me. The fact is, before I bought this house, I really had no experience in painting, no experience in a lot of the stuff I'm working through in this process. I've been into woodworking for around 10 to 15 years at this point, and I've always loved woodworking, but all the YouTubers I've always watched have all been woodworkers and not a lot of renovation-based stuff. Well, as soon as we moved in, I found that basically all my woodworking was going to turn into renovations, and I do really enjoy it, but it was a lot of learning process: plumbing, electrical, painting. It was all these supplies I didn't have. I had all these woodworking tools, power tools, but nothing to do this. So along this process, every time I do a new room, I am learning a lot.
All right, so we got one coat down, and
It looks okay. It is already getting dark. I'm just gonna push right through into the next coat. 2 coats is gonna do it.
Hey, guess what? 2 coats did not do it. After I put on the second coat, it actually made me more worried. Because usually the first coat looks like shit, and then the second coat's really where it comes together. But on this one, it did not. The second coat's still, the room is really humid, and you can see a ton of purple still poking through.
So I have the second coat of paint on here right now, and some spots look good and some look really bad. There's also a stain right here that I can see poking through. So I don't even know if a third coat is going to cover everything going on with this right now. So I'm going to go over it quickly with a little roller and like hit the high spots where it's really showing through. Get all of those done first in like a light coat, and then I'll come back with a final, hopeful final third coat after that.
Now, as you can see above the door headers and above the windows are basically the only places I didn't add any tape, and that's because frankly you don't have to be that neat above there. No one can ever see above there, so it's a good place for me to just practice cutting in, but at the same time it's not something I really have to worry about taping because no one's ever going to see it. Now, I did try and come back through with a kind of a different technique to lay on the paint a little bit thicker than I normally would, but I was really struggling to get coverage near the ceiling and especially above here. You can even see it bleeding through on my right shoulder there in that middle. That still shows a lot. So I think total on the trim I did 4 coats to try and get it there, and I even switched in a roller at some point to try and add a little more thickness to it, but man, it took way longer than I wanted it.
So I was really worried that I was going to have to do a 4th coat on some of where I had to cut in, but actually the 3rd coat did a really good job. So I'm going to roll on the 3rd coat now, and I think it might be done. I'm hoping it's done, because I'm really overpainting this room. I'm going to start in this corner. We're going around.
Now, some sections it looks like I'm pretty much doing nothing, right? So in this corner where we're not getting a lot of light hit, you can't tell, but look at this. Look at the coverage difference. So 2 coats barely did anything, but the 3rd coat really sealed it in here. And again, underneath this window, it's also really hard to see because we don't have a lot of kind of light pushing down, but just going over, giving everything an even 3rd coat was definitely the way to move and got full coverage. Finally, I get to pull back the tape, and you want to do this right after you paint while the tape is wet to give you the crispest line you can.
Hard to tell, but that is crisp.
Now, some spots, like I said, I'm still learning, so sometimes the tape kind of pulls away and takes a little bit of the paint with it. I'm not 100% sure why it only happens in some spots, but that makes sure I do keep the paint really close so I can do any touch-ups as I go, because if you forget to do it when you're walking, you're just going to forget about it. Like, honestly, you'll think you'll remember where that little spot's going to be, and then you'll never see it again. So I just make sure, carry it, fix it as you go, and that way you don't have to come back. See these 2 little spots there? Just kind of cut in a little bit, and again, this is also behind the dresser, so you're never going to see this either. But pulling off the tape feels great, but it can be a little more tedious than I'd like it to be, and it feels like sometimes it's a little tough. You know, you need your X-Acto knife and you need all that, but look at this one here. We get a perfectly nice crisp line. Pull that tape away at 45 degrees.
So we're done. Actually, that's not true. I have a little bit of touch-up paint with some of the trim. Some of the trim paint like kind of came off and is a little uneven. So a couple little spots for trim paint touch-up, and then we're done.
Now, as a reminder, here's what we started with. Purple walls, old trim, old doors, everything in this place, small lights, had to be redone, and here is the after. It was a little bit more work than I wanted to be, but I am honestly super happy with how this turned out. The cream color in our Canadian winters, when it's really dark a lot of times, is nice to have something light in here, not like this dark purple anymore, and I absolutely love how that 3rd coat made it lay down really nice and flat, so I am super happy with this. Now, looking at the cost breakdown, really not that expensive. Can of Opulence paint from Sherwin-Williams was around $60. Outside of that, we have the trim paint. We already accounted for that in the last video. That's pretty much it. Tape gun, maybe $20. You're good.